Let's do it. Okay, everybody, let's do it. I am Mike Brownell, the guy behind Day Away Careers, and on behalf of Casey, Graham, and Lauren from the Northwestern Energy and Sustainability Consortium, I want to welcome everybody to a conversation. And this is a conversation between students who want to get into sustainable energy, or at least are curious, and some wonderful panelists who've done it. A couple of recent grads from Northwestern, and also a recruiter. So just to set the stage here a little bit, we have a digital attendance tonight by virtue of the webcams, which are streaming live to GoToWebinar. So I want to welcome those folks for being here, and for their benefit, just to let them know what's going on here in the room. We've got a wonderful group of Northwestern students who thought they were here principally to get free pizza, and then once they got in the room, we snagged them and said, "You guys got to break into teams, come up with questions," and they've done it, and they've done an absolutely fantastic job of that. And obviously, the important part of a Q&A session would be the answers. And for that, we have our panelists who, in just a second, are going to talk about their companies and what they do. But just to get some high-level introductions here, to my immediate right is Ritu from Lanza Tech. And then we've got Sam, who is at Invenergy. And then at the very end, Eileen, who is our recruiter from Lanza. So before I pass the mic, and Ritu, I'll go to you here in just a little bit to talk about Lanza and what you do. But the one thing I would like to share with you guys is the single biggest reason that these guys are here is because they have not forgotten how hard it can be to get your first job. And frankly, sometimes just to figure out what you want to do for a first job. And if that's hard, it's even harder if you want to get into sustainable energy. So despite the fact that they have been working all day, they've got the just incredible giving back attitude to get up here from wherever they've been and to do that in the rain. And I think that's really cool. And I think what you're going to get is a very interesting perspective here that I know you've got a career fair tomorrow night. You probably got tons of career fairs coming up. This is going to give you, I think, a different perspective than what you can get, a very helpful complementary perspective. So with that, Ritu, why don't you talk a little bit about what you're doing at Lanza and what Lanza does?
So I'm a chemical engineer and environmental engineer by trade. What I do at Lanza Tech is a lot of different things. I do some process modeling, process optimization, as well as equipment design and engineering. I also work a little bit with our business development group to present cases to customers for partnerships. What Lanza Tech does, I don't know if any of you looked it up beforehand, but we take waste carbon containing gases and convert it to ethanol using a microbial fermentation. So it's in the biotech field. What else could I say? I'll let Eileen follow up anything about the company that she wants.
All right. Hey guys, I'm Sam, 2012 graduate from civil engineering. Now I work at Invenergy, which is a developer, owner-operator, also called an IPP, independent power producer, based out of Chicago. We're actually the largest privately held wind company in North America. So we have a lot of wind generation assets. We have a lot of thermal generation assets too, which generally means natural gas for us, and then also a sprinkling of solar in that space as well. So I'm a development engineer for the company. That means that I do a lot of energy modeling, so energy production estimation for wind farms, the same thing for solar farms, and that gets into layouts, equipment choice, equipment pricing, and at this point I'm getting more involved in development and sales and marketing as well.
Hi, I'm Eileen. I am the senior HR generalist at Lancetech. So recruitment is one of the functional areas that I support the company on. I do all ranges from the science groups, engineering. So I was on the interview team when we got RE2, all the way down to the office groups that I work within. Outside recruiting, I work pretty much the employee life cycle, benefits, comp, performance management, talent management. It's been a lot of fun, and the stuff I'm working on right now is all about optimization, so that we can really spend the time to work with the managers on their talent development side of stuff. Make sure we have the right people in the right places.
So I think we're going to start the show with Team Ritu. Is that you, Will? So Will's going to kick it off, and then after Will, we go to Invenergy team in the middle there, and then to back to Lancetech for Eileen, and we'll just run that cycle over and over until the pizza runs out. Go for it, Will.
All right. So the first question is for Ritu, and I'm wondering what are some things that you did when job searching to get your foot in the door at places that interested you?
You know, that's a good question. It was a combination of many different things, and I think the thing that really carried through all of it is persistence, because finding a job in a space that is fairly challenging is hard to do. For me, it was building a network and contacts and being able to reach out to those people. I mean, particularly Northwestern alums, keeping in contact and up to date with the industry, and being persistent in tracking down those companies that I found really interesting. So make sure you do your research, and then when you have conversations with people, you're able to connect on a certain level and really get your foot in the door at that company. And don't be afraid to reach out to multiple people, even if you don't get responses, that you know that 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 person who will respond to you could be the person who gets you a job.
Thank you.
So second question is for Sam. I just wanted to know, with solar energy seeming to advance faster over the past couple of years than wind energy technology, have you noticed any shift in your job from day to day, or any shift in your company as solar energy has advanced?
Yeah, definitely. So whereas when I started, I was primarily in wind energy, and I worked on a project in Texas and a few projects around the U.S. Now I'm exclusively solar, and our solar team is getting larger and larger, and we've recently brought on a lot of new people to really target solar development and solar projects moving forward. So in a lot of parts of this country, solar is cheaper than wind, and so you'll see that whereas a few years ago we thought wind would probably be the winner in these places, at this point solar's leapfrogged wind, and so companies like ours are really trying to go after the solar market and be part of the growth.
Thanks so much.
Hey Eileen, so our first question for you is, given that many sustainable energy jobs require prior experience, can we as students really hope to get into this industry when we graduate, or do you find that candidates often need to work somewhere else first?
That's a good question. I think we all keep saying that to all the questions. I would say, yeah, I think with a startup company especially, where you can probably get in a lot easier because they're a lot more open to people who are just driven and committed to the cause. At the same time, a lot of it is based on who you know. So your referral, like Ritu is commenting on, that's really probably your biggest pull. But it's never bad to always just keep an eye on a company or companies that you really like, and work somewhere else so that you can always gain experience at your current role that might not be where you want to be, that eventually you can maneuver into the company of your dreams.
Thanks.
We got a follow-up.
Yeah, I want to do a quick follow-up to Eileen's point and kind of back to my point about networking. So I have a good story. One of my coworkers who recently started at Lanza Tech, how he kind of discovered the company and found the job was at a conference. He met one of our synthetic biologists and they hit it off and had a conversation, and that's how he kind of got his job. So even if you're not looking for something in particular, meeting people at events and really putting yourself out there will help you.
And don't forget, you're in Chicago, where there are a ton of conferences. So if you can ever get a little time to attend them, it's a good way to get some face time.
Okay. Oh, we have another question for Ritu. We were just wondering the most important thing, I mean, if you could pick a most important thing that you learned at Northwestern during like your whole undergrad experience, whether it was a class or an internship, and sort of along that, what do you suggest taking advantage of while we're still here?
So if I go back to a class that I took that I thought was the most useful for me, I would say senior design. I don't know how many of you are chemical engineers, but really being able to put the skills you learn in school to use to achieve a goal for a project was so important, I think. And the second part of your question was,
Oh, sorry. It was a big question. Sort of what you would suggest us to take advantage of while we're still in school.
I would say get involved with student organizations. They really allow you to get real world experience while you're a student and you have, more time to focus on things you're really passionate about. So, I mean, Sam can speak to this because he was very involved on campus too, but those experiences are very, very important.
Yeah. I mean, groups like SEED and ESW, and I'm sure the new ones now, are really one of the more important things you can do when you're here. And it was at ESW that I learned a very important thing, which is it's sort of specific, but if you're looking to get into energy, this is really important. Is the difference between a megawatt and a megawatt hour. That's the bar that a lot of people have when they first talk to you within the industry is, do you have that basic understanding? And you don't always learn that in classes. You learn that in groups that really approach more real world problems. So.
Thank you.
Joseph Young. Next question is for Sam. Just wondering, do you have a government affairs department at Invenergy? And if so, how closely do you get to work with them when developing projects?
Yeah, we do. We have a few people, and they're under the legal department. And I'm in development, so I'm not working day to day with them. But when we're looking at new markets and how markets are maturing, we definitely deal a lot with them. So, for instance, elections are coming up in North Carolina, and solar is really taking off, and wind is in a position to take off there too. But the elections in November could make a big difference in how that transpires over the next couple of years. And so our team is getting very involved there and being aware of what's happening and what's coming about. And that affects what I do and where I develop. And same thing we're doing in other states in the Southeast. So.
One point I would add to that too is my guess is this room is predominantly stuffed with engineers and science folks, but to the extent there are sort of the others, policy, economics, liberal arts more broadly, that's where you will see a number of those folks going into government affairs and into policy, both at the corporate level, like Invenergy, and then of course, at NGOs or governmental organizations. So there's a lot going on there. It's a very attractive field.
So we do have a relatively small team, but of a government relations, one in Europe, and then the one is in the U.S. And their job is to be lobbyists for our company and for what we're creating as an industry. They meet with the G8 summit, governments across Europe, especially because that's where a lot of our industry, or where we'll probably be picking up markets, to meet with their government so that we can position ourselves that we're made into the law. So it's extremely important for a lot of energy companies, especially new technology companies, to have that position, or else we can't make it into the market. So good question. That goes to me anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, this question is for Eileen, Matt Glazer. What are some general things that students might do in a phone or video interviews that could kind of hurt their chances for being considered for a job?
It's always a hard one to answer because it's really subjective to also the recruiter. I know you're talking to your parents about stuff, they'll probably, oh, just act like yourself. It is true. Just be yourself on the phone is really important. If you're too scripted, I'm not going to listen to you. I'll be asking the rest of the questions, but I don't care anymore because that just shows me that you just did a lot of homework and you're just too scripted, and I just don't like that. I want someone to be real on the phone with me. I would answer probably the reverse of what you can do really well is to really speak to your experiences. So I really like that, Ritu and Sam. Thanks. Sorry about that. That they yes. I met him like 5 minutes ago. Is to really pull, if you guys get connected with organizations on campus and do stuff like that's really important to actually be an active participant of those groups because you can pull from that experience into your phone interview. Other things is just being too eager. I did have a phone call with someone, she was a recent grad. It was probably one of the worst phone screens I've been on because after every question she was like, how was that for you? Like, don't ask that. Like I'm not going to answer it, and it's just kind of strange. So don't, just be confident in yourself, be comfortable in yourself, and have a good time on the phone interviews because that's really what's going to get you through the door is your personality. A lot of recruiting has shifted to we don't really care we do care who's competent, but we don't want the best. We want the person that's the right fit. So if your personality comes through on the phone, that's really, especially at our company, because God knows I cannot judge a scientist or an engineer based on their technical skills. So if you think about a recruiter, we're not technical. We're more of a soft person skill. So you kind of look for the soft skills in the phone conversation. And we are seeing a lot of recruiting move away from full-on competency. We're getting the best of the brightest. We get a really good, strong, competent employee, but we really want them to be that culture fit and have really good character. That's the other important one.
Just before we go to Ritu's question, I want to try a little experiment here for maybe a moment of levity, and this will start, Sam and Ritu, with you. Can you guys think of any like really funny or embarrassing situations that happened in an interview, or whether it happened to you or happened to somebody else, just that maybe we can get a yuck out of it, because laughing once in a while is kind of funny. Yeah?
It's right here. It's right here. I still think about it. I remember I was at a career fair here, and I was a material science engineer at the time, and I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, and I was going all over the place. And I remember talking to a recruiter for a construction company, and he was like, so what do you think you could bring to the position? It was like a project management position or something. I was like, well, I guess I would know about the concrete design and the mixes. It was a disaster for me. And and I think he like gave me his card, and then I walked away. So obviously you want to try to mold your experience into many different um, positions, but be careful and spend some time thinking about exactly how you're going to do that before you talk to someone. It wasn't that good. It was pretty embarrassing.
You can't stop it. Oh, okay. Okay. So forward to.
The next question is, what specific skills or areas of expertise do you see bioenergy employers really looking for?
That's a good question for Eileen. um, so I would say I can give you what I think the answer is, and then Eileen can correct me because she'll know much better than I will. I think that they're looking for drive and skills. And it doesn't, for me, I have little to no bio background, but I was still able to use kind of my experiences and skills and show, Eileen and everybody that I could bring something to the table. So engineering design background, being able to size equipment, design a process, those types of skills can translate to any sector. They can translate to manufacturing and chemicals all the way to the biotech industry. So I would say, you could also bring business skills. You can bring engineering skills like I did. You can bring, there's so many facets to a company that isn't what will limit you. And as Eileen said earlier, it's about being a good fit for a company. So your passion plus, are you, someone who can have a business conversation and sit in a meeting and not turn off customers or partners and be friendly.
I think some of what we always look for is, we have what we call basic qualifications, where it says like 2 years of experience, bachelor's or master's in chemical engineering. But really, when it comes down to the soft skills that we look for, big words that we look for, at least at Lanza Tech, is team player, collaboration, takes initiative or is proactive. So those things, like I at least focus all my questions on those type of soft skills, to see if there is a fit there, see what their past experience has been, working in a team, collaborating with other people. And then there's just the overall drive and passion. That one can't really ask questions on, is just, does it come out during an interview, the excitement level. So I do remember we interviewed like 3 people right in a row, and Ritu was one of them. And then we had another guy named Matt and Krish, and we had the longest argument about the 3 of them because they exuded all these like qualities that we all wanted, and we actually ended up hiring all 3 of them. So it was actually really humorous that we were only supposed to pick one, but we're like, no, we want them all. So when you really have those skills, an employer is really gonna hone in on those, because you guys can learn engineering as you grow. Experience comes with time, but I can't teach you how to be a team player. That's something that was already ingrained in you at this point in life. I can't teach you how to collaborate, but I can always teach you the technical stuff.
Thank you.
So I think also learn the vocabulary of your profession and learn how to translate that to people who don't necessarily understand what you studied. And one way to learn how to do that is to be part of panels or student groups on campus that deal with things that are very different from what you've studied, because people will be very interested in what you do, and they'll be more interested if you can really explain the essence of what you do well, and in a way that they can understand. So get involved, go to parties, and do things where you're in a position that you're explaining what you do to people who have not the same background that you do.
So the next time you go to a party and your parents find out about it, you say, I was going there to develop my industry IQ. Sam Malin told me this is the best way to do it. It's a great answer.
This is a question for Sam. My name is Lauren Wustenberg, and this is very related to the question that was just asked. But what skills do you find that you have improved upon the most within the context of your job? And which skills do you wish you had developed more prior to entering into the job market?
Yeah, so the developing skills, I think I've learned how to distill answers into key points and be able to explain my answer or solution to a problem in a way that's succinct and understandable by people. So I noticed certain employees in the office doing it and doing it well, and so I try to emulate the way that they explain things to upper management and whatnot. And over time, you learn how what the points are that people really want to hear, and you go to those first, and you learn how to be efficient explaining things. So in terms of what I would have liked to have more of, I mean, it's not a great answer, but I wish I had a little bit more programming experience. In this day and age, you have to know some sort of language. In engineering, we learn MATLAB, which is great, and it comes in handy a lot at my company. But if you know how to program in Excel or program in MATLAB, you'll be very valuable in an office because not a lot of people can do that very well. So.
I would definitely agree with Sam on the Excel. I thought that I was an expert at Excel coming out of college, but I wasn't. And I realized that during my job, being able to use VBA and learning all the tricks to Excel really helps your efficiency, and people see that in the work you do.
Okay, this is a question for Eileen. From a recruiter standpoint, what would a very well-prepared interviewer look like to you?
Appearance?
I mean, like, what qualifications would they have? What background would they have? That sort of thing.
You're a little nervous there, like, wow. Obviously, it depends on the role. So qualifications, we would look for obviously bachelor's or above. Credentials, I don't know if we really looked for anything specific in engineering or the sciences for credentials. Yeah, try to think what we really, I mean, it's really just what their resume, what they speak to on their resume, what they've done in their past, and we try to match it up to the job description. So what I look for in at least a resume or someone's application is how well they can draw a line to the job description. Because some people just create one resume and send it out, but sometimes you have to really tailor that to the job. Am I answering your question a little bit? What else are you looking for?
I
do
guess
better.
sort of like, do you want them to have done research in school, be involved in extracurriculars?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean, those are kind of obvious, but
No, those are good. Sorry. Yeah, I would say anyone who's been able to juggle school plus something is always a plus. And that's something I always, now a manager might disagree with me because they always typically do, but I always try to look at that. So if someone has a 3.0 versus someone who has a 4.0, but the person at 3.0 was involved in a lot of stuff plus worked, I'm going to give them a little bit more of a thumbs up because they obviously know time management and they understand priorities. They know how to be flexible. These are things that you don't learn unless you like have been stretched to a maximum like that. Someone who might have gotten a 4.0 but only went to school, well, I would expect you to have a 4.0 if that's all you focused on. I'm trying to think of anything else. Yeah, I mean, I think being well-rounded. I don't look for anything specific, like organization-wise, but yeah, you guys can add to it. Sure.
What's kind of fun about this is sometimes one thing leads to another. And in listening to Eileen's excellent answer. One thing she said was drawing a line from a resume to a job description. And the idea that just popped up in my mind is, and this actually connects with the point earlier about passion. And that is when you are applying for a job, and let's say you're in an interview, whether it's on the phone or in person, one of the things that most employers really, really want to conclude is present is that you really want to work for them, right? I mean, that you are really interested in that place. And one way, so part of that gets to the passion thing, showing passion for that employer. But to Eileen's point about drawing a line from the resume to the job description, pay attention to the role as to what it is they're hiring for and try to find out not only all you can about the employer, but that role. And, one easy way to do that, obviously, is go out to LinkedIn. Go look at if you're applying for process engineer at LanzaTech. I have no idea whether I'm going to step in it here, but it seems to me you could go out to LinkedIn and you find the employees that work at LanzaTech and see if there's a process engineer. And you'll get tons of information on those guys and what have they done. What were their prior experiences? And that's, you start pulling the string. But all this goes back to, if it's one thing you really, I think, want to do when you're in an interview, is convince the employer that you just think they're the coolest place in the world, whether you believe that or not. At least, you made the decision to get on the interview. Sell yourself and show how much you really want to work for them.
All right, I'm next. For Ritu, we have a question. If you could just describe to us a little bit more about what you do on a daily basis at your job.
Sure. So one aspect of what I do, I guess it really depends on what project is going on that week or that month. But one part of what I do is put together feasibility studies, which is basically a preliminary engineering design package, which includes a mass balance, process flow diagrams, also equipment spec sheets, and kind of like a description of the process. And we present these to partners. So I'll put together these equipment spec sheets, and process flow diagrams, all of that. Another part of what I do is process optimization. So I'll look at performance of our pilot facilities and try to figure out where we can improve yields or downtime, looking at that.
Thank you.
So this question is for Sam. Moving forward in your career, what are some of the next things that you'll do in your job as you gain more experience?
It depends. Depends on what you want to do, and I think that's a great position to be in, and I'm fortunate that I am. If you're an engineer, I think there'll come a time where you'll have to decide if you want to be an engineer for a while, or if you want to start expanding outside of that. Some people decide they want to be engineers for life, and a lot of times they'll start managing other engineers. They become managers, senior managers, VP of engineering. I hope that's an option for me, although I think I ultimately like to step outside of engineering frequently, and I hope that eventually I will be someone in sales or someone in development who has an engineering lens. And so at Invenergy, there's different paths you can take. A lot of the high-level guys, the CFO, I think, the SVP of development, SVP of operations, they were all engineers, and then they made that transition at some point in their lives. And if you find a company that does that for engineers, that's a great place to be. And this applies to other fields too. You can either kind of go into management, or you can start exploring new business and bringing new business in, and that's kind of the sales or development end of things. So where I go, we'll see. It's not a one-way street. We'll see what they want me to do as well. But That's the question.
Thank you.
A really hot ticket that you guys might want to think about if your STEM backgrounds, engineering, science, is the MBA. An MBA later, plus an undergrad in any STEM field, you will just write your ticket in terms of what's available for you out there. But again, only if, as Sam very eloquently said, you don't want to be an engineer all your life. And a lot of people do, and it's awfully cool. We need a ton of people that will do that.
All right, this question's for Eileen. Job postings, especially on websites, often have extremely detailed lists of qualifications, some of which seem impossibly long. If a candidate doesn't meet all of the listed qualifications, should he or she still apply? And in that case, what are good ways to work around them by tying in your own skills and experiences to the other qualifications?
I'm glad you asked this question. Most people don't recognize what that portion of the job description is. It's considered basic qualifications. It's federal guidelines that we have to, as an employer, put out there, telling the public that this is the basic minimum that we need, that this role needs to do the job successfully. So if you are applying to an employer, so for instance, Lancetech, we are a federal contractor. If we were to look at anyone that did not meet those basic qualifications, we would be discriminating. So then we would have to go back to the job description and open it back up. So if we said 3 years of experience, but we're looking at you that has 1 year, then we have to go back and do the job description and open up to everyone who has 1 year. So that's just a little lecture on the federal law there. But yeah, it does happen. People can definitely have skills that exceed what we were originally thinking about because maybe their schooling was really in depth. Thinking of one person in particular that we just hired as a research associate that didn't really meet the basic qualifications, but because his schooling was so specialized that we couldn't pass him up. So I would always recommend, yes, definitely apply as long as it's within reason. So prime example, we just had to post a job for a principal control process engineer person. It's for immigrations, for him to get his green card, actually. It was 5 years of experience, had to have a master's in electrical engineering, and had to have prior principal engineering experience. And we got someone who just recently graduated from college. No, don't apply to something like that. But if it's within reason that you have a bachelor's and it asks for a bachelor's, it's asking for 2 years, you might not have any, I would say yes to that one. It's within reason that you could stretch your research experience, hopefully your classroom experience, any internships that you may have done. So yeah, that's actually a good answer to your questions. Internships, we do look for internships. I would say, yeah, you could always stretch that information out. But there is a reason why we have numbers there and why it's called basic qualifications or minimum. It's really regulated by the government, not so much by the employer. So yeah, hopefully that taught you guys all something.
I didn't know that.
Real quick question: how many folks here are not graduating this coming 2015? So freshmen. Oh, cool. All right, time out from the questions. I want to throw an open-ended question, Sam, to you and Ritu, and Eileen, you might want to comment on this too, but just internships. Eileen, you mentioned internships. Just any thoughts that you've got as far as what's useful in finding them and maybe picking the right kind of internship, or frankly, any thoughts you got about internships, because again, the majority of folks here are graduating, but there's a bunch who aren't, and internships are important. Sam, you want to go first?
Don't be afraid to take an unpaid internship, is what I'll say. I know it's not fun making money over the summer when other people are, but having the internship is really important. So to the extent that you can do one, and maybe it's unpaid and maybe it's not full time, but you can still put it on your resume and talk about it. So I did an internship for a solar company. It was unpaid. It was close to home, and I ended up talking a lot about it at my interview for Invenergy. And I actually interned at Invenergy before starting full time. And so I'll also say, don't be afraid of taking an internship after you graduate, which is scary. I did that, and it was a summer internship, and it was sort of a test period, and it ended up working out. And if you work really hard and you prove yourself, I think it often will. I mean, companies, if they're hiring, they want to hire you, and if you can prove yourself in internship, it makes their decision a lot easier. So don't be afraid to take an internship right after school with the intention of trying to work full time there.
So the only thing I can say really is you should, if you have the opportunity, you should do an internship or do a co-op if you're an engineer, because not only does it give you early exposure to the real world and help you decide if that's something you actually want to do, but it also gives you experiences to talk about whether or not it is the industry you want to go into. You can draw upon those experiences generally with almost any employer, future employer.
I totally echo Sam. Is definitely take an unpaid internship if you can. I mean, obviously paid is always better, but there are a lot of unpaid internships out there. I know that's actually probably one of my biggest regrets in college was not doing an internship. I did work a bit, but an internship focused within my area would have been probably really helpful. When my master's program, I had to do internships throughout my time there, and don't look at it about the experience that you're going to gain in the field. It's really internship is actually probably the best way for you to learn what it's like to work in the real world, because you have a set hours, you have to wake up. It is really a hard adjustment to start working. I know you guys probably go to class all day, but it's really different going from 8 to 5 every day, working around the clock, only getting little breaks here and there. It's really also great to learn business writing that you don't even realize the way you write in academia is very different than what you're going to get in the business world. Very short, to the point, blunt. And then sometimes you get really wacky emails and you're sitting there for hours trying to figure out what the person wrote. So there's a lot of professional etiquette that you're going to learn at an internship. And that is why I would say is if you can only get it unpaid, do it, because you're going to learn a lot of stuff that you just can't learn in the classroom. Good resources for internships. Obviously, good employers, big employers would do LinkedIn. I know you guys have got to have a career services here on this campus for sure. I sat through a 2-hour lecture, so I think I've got like 20 people that do career services, so they're a good resource for you. Craigslist is still actually a really good, valid place to get internships, especially for non-for-profit type areas or probably startups where they just don't have the money, the power to really post big ads. And then obviously, if you just Google internship, whatever you're looking for, chemical engineering, you're going to find stuff off that too. Twitter, any social media at this point. So yeah, definitely do an internship.
I'm just going to pile on a couple of quick points, and that is the point was made that you don't necessarily have to intern in the field that you want to get into. So, if you're really interested in sustainable energy, don't limit yourself to internships that are just from sustainable energy companies, because you're, again, trying to build skills. You're trying to get a couple of laps around the track so that your real employer someday can look at you and say, well, I don't have to, teach this person where the water fountain is. And the opposite extreme, and this sort of picks up on Sam's point, is this notion of an internship after graduation. I'm looking at students at one of the finest schools in the world, and so most of you will not have to do that, right? You can get an internship. I'm sorry, you can get a job that's well paying at some of the greatest employers and do that straight out of school. But if you really want to get in a particular area that you're passionate about, whether that's sustainable energy or something else, you might want to consider breaking into that industry with an internship. It's kind of a lease to hire. It's a little offensive, but there's a lot of people doing it, so something to think about. Next question.
Hello, this is for Ritu. What do you find most rewarding about your job, as well as what do you find the most challenging?
So I'll end on a positive note, so I'll start with the most challenging thing. I would say it's the industry. The industry itself is challenging. So you're constantly trying to overcome barriers set for you. And I would say the most rewarding part is being able to overcome those challenges and really improve the economics of a process or the performance of a process, and step by step kind of build your way to success. I find that coupled with being passionate about sustainability. I was an ESW. I don't know how many of you are now, but being able to see success about something that you are really passionate about is very rewarding.
So this is just more of a general question. I guess this could be for anyone, but so I noticed that Ritu, you said you double majored in chemical engineering, and Sam, you majored in mechanical engineering, and Aileen, you mentioned like chemical and electrical as well. So do you think if we want to go into the energy and sustainability fields, do you think it's better to have like a more general major than like versus like a specific environmentally related one? Or could it be either? I don't know.
It depends, but it really depends. For me, I don't really think it mattered what my major was. We hire environmental engineers, we hire physics majors, we hire civil engineers, mechanical engineers. A lot of the things you'll do in energy, and I'm speaking for myself, this isn't necessarily applicable for others, but is something you learn on the job, and it's not something you're going to learn in your class, and that's why it's so important to do student groups like ESW and the like. So I think it's good to have a general sense and a general major. And I know I'm talking from an engineering perspective. I mean, how many people in here are engineers? I should have asked this before. Okay, so a good amount. I'm sorry for the people who aren't, that I'm talking about engineering. But talk to people in the industry and see what they think is important, and maybe try to take a few classes in that. But in general, I think a lot of places just want to see that you learned how to problem solve, which is something you do in the STEM fields.
So I also think, there's a difference between what you're passionate about and what you enjoy doing every day. So you can major in any field. Say you're passionate about business, you do business, or you really like, chemical engineering and flows, or, building things with your hands, mechanical engineering. You can have any set of skills and be able to enter the renewable energy field because there will be something there for you. But it's about finding something you like doing every day and, think you can be good at, and finding where you fit into this niche kind of industry.
I know at our company we specifically look for chemical engineers, but that's because of the process that we do with the fermentation. Obviously, my title is a generalist, so I obviously believe in a general, broad view of things. I don't think you need to be specific. And two things I can just point out is you can always go back to school and add on to your education at any point. And two, you don't need to have all the answers today about what you need in your credentials and your backing. I think the biggest is just that you get a bachelor's degree. That is the new high school diploma, and now masters. A lot of people want masters. That's the next thing. So there's always that opportunity to go back to school and get a master's in something more specialized. I know we actually hired one of your recent master biotechnology people for one of our recent jobs as a patent agent. So she went to school, got a bachelor's here, started working, and knew she always wanted to go back, and went back and got what she needed. And she took her some time. She knew she wanted to go back for a master's, didn't know what in specifically. So you don't need to figure that out today. It's always something that you can add on later in your life.
Hey, I'm Eric Niemeyer. This question is for Sam or just whoever else.
You're in the wrong seat.
Am I?
No, it's perfect. You're perfect.
I wasn't even
Go ahead.
Okay. Did you consider working at a startup, and what do you see as any pros and cons of doing that as opposed to a non-startup?
Yeah. I think I did. I don't remember exactly which one I might have looked at, but I've found over the last couple years that I really want and need mentorship and experienced people telling me, what they've learned and imparting their knowledge on me. And you can get that in a startup for sure. But sometimes you trade off that ability when you go to a startup. Whereas if you go to a larger company, they have whole systems planned for how to for your employee growth and how you're going to learn and how you're going to get trained. And those programs are really great in a lot of cases. I mean, I think GE has a great young professionals program. So and this gets at one of the important things is it's great if you can find someone who you want to work for and not necessarily a company you want to work for, because at our age, mentorship is really important. So if that means you need to work at a startup, then that's what you do. But if it means you work at a bigger company, then you do that.
So this is a question for Ritu. What are some things you did when you were actually in the job search to kind of get your foot in the door at the places that you were interested at working?
This is kind of similar to the first question, but I would say reaching out to people, like reaching out to your network on LinkedIn. Your professors can also be pretty helpful to connect you with people. The way I met Eileen was through a recruiter, through CPS. Don't know what CPS stands for, but recruiters can be really useful in advocating for you at companies. But I would say research the industry, know who you want to work for, and make good connections with people.
By chance, is there anyone in IT here? No. Oh, it's a really good recruiting firm that does hire well, is what they're called. They're IT startup. Definitely, I was gonna grab the mic anyway from me too. She didn't say that. Agencies, connecting with agencies is really, really big. It's really less time on you because you kind of interview with them and then they try to find you a job, and they're going to because they make commission off that. And it's kind of nice because they're always searching. So if you get a job, you might not always want it, but you get it hooked up with a search firm. That's how I got my first job. Actually, my first two jobs was through a search agency. And it is just a really kind of a new wave just because recruiting, it takes a lot of time. And especially in niche markets, niche industries, it's hard to find that stuff. So yeah, definitely advocate for that.
Thank you.
So, go for it. So this is a question for Eileen, but it's actually kind of a big question. So, Eileen, if you want to start answering, then maybe we can ask everyone else. But this is for the members of the audience who aren't necessarily science tech backgrounds, and you guys talked about this a little bit previously, but I was just wondering if we could hear from you for the people who maybe have had an internship in economics and then found out that they love economics, but that they'd like to get into the energy and sustainability field from an angle of econ, for example, but haven't necessarily had the experience in their college experience with like an energy club or something like that. They're just very interested in it and would like to get involved or get a job working at an energy firm from that kind of an angle. How would you recommend someone from a non-science background without the previous experience in energy and sustainability necessarily, who has a vested interest to kind of go about that? And then I guess for Sam and Ritu to follow up on that, do you see people who are in environmental policy and economics and other not hard science majors that you get to work with in your companies? Is there a place for people who study that amongst teams of engineers at startup companies or even at Invenergy? So I guess, yeah, kind of a big question, but.
That is. Before I get to you, I will answer another idea for, I think everyone keeps asking what are resources out there. If you guys do find a company you like, but maybe there's not a job yet for you there, if they have a job alert option during on their career page, you can post your profile, kind of fill in what your background is and what kind of job you're looking for, and click alert. And when they do post a job, it would then send you the note saying, hey, your job background fits XYZ. I was on a webinar this morning and they were saying that that has become one of the biggest waves of how people are finding jobs is by being alerted, or having a Google alert set to certain companies with job or application or new hire stuff on it. It's always good too. Answer your question, Casey. I'll tell you more of a story. So one of the best, this Ritu's going to go back and tell everyone who the best employee is at our company, but I would say probably one of the biggest standout employees at our company, who is a critical piece in closing our Series D funding, actually got the job because he went to a conference and pretty much wooed our CEO. He doesn't have a science background. He actually is, I think he has some econ, but I think he was a big finance person. But he believed in what sustainability. Oh, I'm like, oh my God, this is creepy. um, so yeah, so he doesn't have a background in it, but there are jobs. I mean, sometimes companies just don't even know what they need until it's right there in front of them. So he just approached her, kept emailing her, kept following up with her on random stuff, and the next thing you know, they kind of created a job. And then he relocated him from North Carolina all the way to Chicago. So I mean, things like that do happen. It does take time. I think as as you were saying before, that just the slow building of a relationship, building rapport is really great over time because that stuff can happen. And I will echo what you said too, that it doesn't all have to be at once. That delay is not denial. Sometimes you just need to really wait and gain the experience to get into those type of companies. But yeah, definitely networking is probably the best way for someone like that to really showcase their abilities. And yeah, sometimes you just meet the right person and they will create jobs. I know we're looking at doing it for someone else too, who's honestly just an intern right now, but we really like him. So.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of non-engineers and I guess STEM is the word that we're using today. People at Invenergy doing development, so negotiating land deals with landowners throughout the country, and legal reviewing real estate documents, reviewing contracts, in government affairs, keeping on top of how policy is changing. So engineers make up a good component of Invenergy, but there's plenty of other areas to work in, and I think it's pretty competitive and it's tough. I mean, engineering's it's a good solid background. The other ones, I think it's great to have some extracurricular experience, but if you don't, try to figure out how to tailor your background in economics to maybe corporate development or finance. I mean, all these renewable energy companies are really big into how to finance projects, how to finance portfolios of projects. There's a lot going on in that space, and if you go to some conferences and you read some papers, you might be in a better position to understand them as an econ major than an engineer, and that's useful. So.
Okay, here's the deal. We promised you a 1-hour event, and we're just a few minutes past that. So before everybody starts heading towards the pizza, give me a couple minutes to make some final remarks. Most importantly, you guys have been awesome. You've been here for an hour and a half, developing the questions, listening to these guys. I'm really, really proud of you and grateful. Thank you for because again, you're putting on a show. It's all being recorded. The second thing is, I think you must know how hard Casey, Lauren, and Graham from the Northwestern Energy and Sustainability Consortium have worked to put this on. And also, not lost on you, I doubt, is the fact that these guys worked a full day and then came here to give an hour. So now would be the time for us to say, give us some applause to say thank you to these guys for doing this. Just a couple other quick points. If you like these types of events, and particularly if you're into econ and policy, we've got 3 more coming up. One at Wisconsin, econ and policy, one at Michigan Ross MBA, and then one that's going to be at Columbia for women in renewable energy. So you'll see them on the website. Get a hold of me. There's plenty more coming. You've got a really cool career fair, I believe, right, Lauren and Casey, tomorrow night. Hopefully everybody knows about that. If not, find Casey and Lauren. This is who's sponsoring it.
It's at noon to 4 p.m. at the North Center.
There you go. And I guess the final thing is, as you can tell, I am really excited about what we're doing. One of the things I want to do is to find a way to take the content, the recordings and the text that come out of these sessions, and to repackage them so that we can have a national conversation. Get these out on social media, especially Reddit. So if there's anybody who's interested in doing a little bit of like a project internship, just an hour or 2 a week, or somebody who might want to work with me, get a hold of me. And my name's on the handout, and you can find me on the website. Beyond that, it looks like there's lots of pizza left, so go get it. And thank you so much for being here.
On behalf of all of us students, we just wanted to say thank you to all 4 of you guys. Mike, wonderful job as a moderator. Thank you so much for helping the 3 of us out in organizing this and putting this panel together. It's really a team effort, and we just wanted to say thank you, you 3, for coming out despite the crazy rain outside. But we all really enjoyed it. I can speak on behalf of all of us when we say really thank you.